Now what we've seen in the examination of this area is that it is obviously a play area for the kids, because we're finding toys and we're finding all kinds of playthings that the kids are using as a kind of little fort area. And so what I'm going to do is take my penetrometer and I'm going to push it down here just to see what kind of compaction that we have. Here we go. We're going to go down, and I'm not quite, I'm going, and look how far down I've gone. Okay. All right, I'm going to come back up. Each one of these sections represents 3 inches, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 21. I can get it in almost 2 feet. So we don't necessarily have a compaction problem. We just have a soil conditioning problem where you've got a lot of clay that is basically non-porous and has no nutrients, and is a call that we're going to have to make to the owners to let them know exactly how we have analyzed this situation and what needs to be done. You have all right, we've been called out here because this tree has a noticeable lean to it, and the owner was concerned that the children climbing in this tree pushed it over. And with the examination that we've been able to make, we're seeing, for example, right here, there's a ledge where there might be some minor breakage or fracturing down below. See where these roots are growing back in this way, so they've come down up that little wall, 6-inch wall of clay, and now they're headed back in toward the root collar. And because of that lack of lateral extension through the clay that they were not able to achieve, this made it particularly prone, now that it's about a 20-foot tree, to the geometry of biomechanics that pushes it over. And it's now growing at an angle, and he's afraid that it might grow over even more. And so we've been asked to advise him as to what corrective actions might be necessary in order to stabilize this tree and secure it long term, because it separates his house and backyard from driveway, sidewalk, and the public that are within 6 to 8 feet of this area.
All right, coming in.
And see out here, we got that crust right there to go through. We have no penetration of the roots out here for sure. All right, Jesse, come here. I'll show you something.
1.
All right, what we see here, and now this is the middle of the winter. It's below freezing right now, but these lesions are a disease called Ceridium canker. And you can see where the drainage, when the sap is up and it's hotter and it's drier, where all of this has drained down. See these lesions? These are cracks in the bark through which insects gain access, and during the growing season, these discolorations are the sap that has dried up. There it is right there. And you can see it all up and down the tree, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. And it's mainly on the trunk, although if you look right here on the limbs, you've got these same lesions right here, here, evidence of the dried sap. Here's some right here that's just recently, probably because of the 70-degree day we had maybe 2 weeks ago, it drained out some sap. Here's evidence of it right up here. See that? That's another. And so these, because of limited critical root zone, deeply planted, and restricted. Here's some right here. There's actually there's a sap little module of sap right there. See it right there? Oh, I just popped it. Okay, on the end of my thumb, it was right there. You can see it. It's slightly wet. This iridium canker is not necessarily a fatal disease, but what it's done is it's weakened this tree. And here's some more right here. There you go. That's a good shot right there. See that? That's sap. That's freshly drained sap right there. Here's some more of it right here. There's some more of it right there. And a close examination throughout the tree. This is probably recently broken limbs from the kids climbing in it. And as we can see from looking at the tree as we go up, it starts to straighten up a little bit, but it continues to tilt. And at some point under a snow load or ice load, we predict that this tree will fail. Here's a nice little buildup of sap right there. You can see that. That's not bark. That's nothing but the drainage of the lifeblood of this tree caused by Ceridium canker. Here's more of it here. Here's more of it here. It's all up and down. It's very obvious. It's so prolific that you could almost miss it and attribute it to the natural look of the tree, but it is not. This tree is very sick. Now, this soil out here is not as bad, not quite. We've got a little bit of rooting. I think that a lot of that rooting that we're seeing is from the grass. That's turf right there. That's turf. And as you can see, yeah, those roots come from the top down, not from the bottom up. And then we've got our clay there. And so surprisingly, the soil on this side is not quite as bad as the soil that we found on the high side. And that's mainly because when they dug the hole, all of that dug clay got spread immediately to the side of the hole, and it was left there. And it not compacted, but it layered, and there's nothing living through which stimulates the roots to go, and so they turn around, go up the wall of that, and then hit right back in. And that is what the lack of stability, the lack of lateral rooting, which gives stability to a taller tree, that's what we're after and what we don't have. All right, we're seeing this is where all the drainage comes out. Okay, we have more drainage. I don't know where that one black tube there ends up. It might be connected somewhere, but we've got all of these portions here. Let me see, let me do a little compaction. Okay, well, okay, we're pretty hard. We can get it down in there. Okay. All right, let me. Whoa. All the way up. And as you can see, we've got, here's some topsoil, and we've got layered clay, which is very typical of construction in these neighborhoods. See all this right here? This is another layer right here. You can see where it changes color. Another layer right there. Got another layer right here. This is where it's all been layered in. All of it. It gets real thick down there towards the last. So thick that I can't even push it out of there. But that, all right, let me see here. I'm going to get this. I'm going to stick this through here. Okay, we got part of it coming. As you can start to see, take us out of here. This is a real tight red ball of good old Carolina clay. See it right here? Non-porous, multicolored, no roots. And this is why we simply, and we're not seeing any evidence of any roots anywhere in here. And this is why all of these 20-footers here are not getting the lateral root extension that they need to support them, and they begin to lean as they grow toward the sun and as they grow toward the water and nutrients, because we're on a grade here. As you can see, as we walk up here, you can see where all of this is where all of the fertilizer, all of the applied amendments that the landscapers have put on here washes down, and it washes into the beds of these trees. Our number one enemy on these types of fast-growing non-native varieties is over nitrogen fertilization, which stimulates all of this lemmy growth that you see and pulls them over in the direction of the morning sun. And also we found where the soil conditions on the lower side were much better than they were here, and that's why we have the lean.
Two.
One of the reasons that we find these problems so often in these types of environments is all of the topsoil, which there wasn't much, but most all of it from this area here. You can see where it's been washing down in these little gullets right here. All of the topsoil, all of the fertilizer, all of the herbicide, and everything else that's been applied in this area washes into the beds. Now, if we were to ask this homeowner, do you fertilize your trees? They would say no. And we would beg to differ and say, every time you put any type of a fertilizer or an herbicide or a pesticide on this property, they are going from there in the first rain into these beds, and that's what's stimulating all of this very lemmy growth. And there is not an appropriate amount of root growth to support all this above ground growth, and as a result they go deficient. They don't have the right amounts of water, nutrients, and energy, and they get sick. These have ceridium canker, they'll weaken, and the prognosis, the future for these trees is not very bright. They're going to struggle. The ownership will probably have to spend money on pesticide applications to kill insects, because these trees have become weak. They are defenseless because they're not given the amount of rooting space they need to acquire those abilities.